Hello. Okay, I'm gonna make this video short. I'm gonna keep it short because there's somewhere I need to go today. Um, well, before I get into this video, I've been learning. I went back to learning French. I just went to a YouTube channel and went to a video that teaches other people a quick way to learn French. Quick French 101. It's called French 101 Lessons, and I've been learning that in the past, and I just put it to the side and just ignored it. Then I decided to go back and learn French. So it's French is a hard language to learn, so it's it's gonna take me a while to learn. I got this disability, but I'm not gonna let that hold me back. So it's gonna take me a while. Okay, in this video, I'm gonna go back to talking about mass shooters and mass shootings, and I found an article from NBC News. It's from 2019, August the 6th, 2019. It's about it's titled Guns in America. Americans are crazy. Foreign journalist grapples with covering U.S. mass shootings. So basically, I'm just going to read something about a foreigner's perspective on mass shootings here in the U.S. I'm also going to be reading some other things as well. So just bear with me. I mean, I hope I don't bore anybody. So I'm going to keep this video short. So, okay, let me get right into this. Americans are crazy. Foreign journalist grapples with covering U.S. mass shootings. And it reads, this is a comment from a reporter from Spain. And he says this: I've been living in the United States for 17 years, and the number of massacres that I have to cover has been endless, said Parando correspondent for Spain's El Mundo. I can't pronounce that name. I'm sorry, folks. Okay. Woman touches a cross at a makeshift memorial for victims outside the scene of a mass shooting in El Paso, Texas on August the 6th, 2019. Okay. And it reads, this article is by Claire Atkinson, and it reads, Gerondo Hope, a security analyst for Mexican newspaper El Universal, has covered gun violence in the United States and Mexico, but the events over the weekend in El Paso stand out. This wasn't like any other mass shooting, Hope said. This was an attack directed against the Mexican population. Like their American counterparts, journalists for international outlets have grown accustomed to covering mass shootings, but many reporters who spoke to NBC News say it can be challenging to communicate the situation to their audience, who have trouble understanding gun culture, politics, and extremists in the U.S. The international journalists also pointed to what they see as a reluctance for U.S. journalists to accurately discuss the president's heroic and its connection to violent acts. Hope said that the shooting in El Paso has particularly resound in Mexico, leading to the question to what measure has been donated by the heroic of President Donald Trump. The U.S. suffers far more mass shootings than any other country in the world. Other countries have endured mass shooting events, have moved quickly to amend gun laws, with the most recent example out of New Zealand. That nation in April enacted gun control measures just weeks after an attack on two mosques in the city of Christchurch. People don't understand this. I've been living in the United States for 17 years, and the number of massacres that I have to cover has been endless, and it's still been endless. It's endless today. Said Pablo Barrando, the U.S. correspondent for Spain's second largest newspaper, El Mundo. To put it bluntly, to be perfectly honest, what people think is that Americans are crazy. Americans are crazy. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say this. These mass shooters here in the U.S. Some of them were born with a mental illness. Some of them developed a mental illness through the toxicity of American society, and others are filled with racial hatred. Like white supremacists going around shooting and killing targeting a race that they feel that's gonna wipe out their precious white race. But I'm just gonna focus on the mass shooters who develop a mental illness. I'm gonna focus on them. People who were picked on, bullied, teased, was treated badly through all of those people, and been treated badly in a dysfunctional family that they hail from. All that makes someone snap and become a mass shooter. Just go out and get a gun and just shoot and kill people, turn the gun on themselves and shoot and kill themselves, or worse, get shot and killed by police. Yeah, that's that same scenario, and all of that. People just lump them like David Hogg, the survivor of the Parkland, Florida, Stoneman Douglas High School mass shooting that was carried out by Nicholas Cruz. He lumps these mass shooters who are torn down by American society. He lumps them all in with white supremacists and people who were born with a mental illness. He just basically lump them all and put them all into one boat and describes them as people who are full of hate and racial hatred. And you got other Americans who talk about, he's a lunatic, he's insane. Yeah. Those people, those Americans here in the United States, those people will never understand what makes mass shooters do what they do. Just specifically the ones who are torn down and abused by a toxic society full of toxic people here in America. Being yelled at, bullied, torn down, ignored, belittled. Yeah, all of that. And throwing a dysfunctional family. All that together, will make that person who isn't dangerous, who isn't crazy, make them snap and make them morph into a mass shooter. But Americans like David Hogg will never understand what makes a mass shooter do what they do. What makes a mass shooter snap. Instead of him, I mean, Americans like him won't separate a person who became a mass shooter, who was never a mass shooter, who was never like, who never went crazy, who never went crazy, and develop hate. I mean, he'll never understand. People like him will never understand these mass shooters and what they came from, and what drove them to do what they do. He just People like him will just lump everybody into one boat and just throw out cookie cutter arguments. You know, I'm gonna be honest with you. I mean, my dad is like this. My sister is like this. I don't know about my mom. My mom just she's completely out of touch. If I talk to her about why mass shooters do what they do, she'll just completely ignore me and tell me, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not talking about anything." Because I remember the other day, my mother badgered me and told me, "You get mad, you get upset, you be talking." I said, "Well, yeah, I'm not gonna let nothing get to me. Like I just ignore people." And she said, "Yeah, you talk people, you let people, you get mad and you be talking all the time. Yeah, you be talking." And when I told her like the problem, like how I am and all, she just ignores me and just walks off, like, and just talks. Yeah, you ain't talking about nothing. You ain't talking about nothing. And it was kind of weird, and something like that will, if someone who will become a mass shooter gets triggered by that all the time, they will snap and they will lose it. You know, I kind of snapped and I kind of lost it in the past, but you know what? I grew out of that and I don't do that anymore. I don't let nothing bother me because basically, all this toxic stuff here in America, how far gone and how crazy some Americans are. I just blow it off and I just move on because, I just don't care what other people think. In case in point with my father, my dad told me if I move to France, I will never ever learn the French language. I'll never catch on because I have a learning disability. I will never catch on. I'll never catch on to learning the French language, and I'm going to fail, and I'm going to get mad and frustrated and be violent and mean and dangerous. And yeah, in the past, that angered me, but it doesn't anger me, make me want to blow up and yell and shout. That triggered my father to snap his fingers at me and say this to me. See there, you get mad all the time. You get mad. If my dad said it, if my dad says something like that to me now, I wouldn't care. I just blow it off. I just move on. Because furthermore, what does my dad know about other countries? Like, I remember I was in Germany with him, and we were at this store at this mall in Hamburg, Germany, and he tried to buy something with American money, and when he handed over the American money to the cashier at this store, the cashier wouldn't take it because they don't take American money. They don't take any money from any country. They take euros because Germany is part of the European Union. Germany is an EU state, and just like all the EU states in Europe, they take euros, not American money. So when that cashier rejected the American money that my dad hand over to pay for what he wanted to buy, I had to use my euros to pay for something that he tried to buy with American money. And this man gonna tell me that I'm never gonna learn the French language. I'm never gonna catch on in France because of my learning disability. So what a joke. But I'm not gonna let that make me blow up and snap and go out and get a gun and go on a mass shooting spree and shoot and kill innocent people. Yeah, including my idiot dad and my idiot dad and people like him. I'm not gonna do that. No. Cause I'm not gonna do that. But yeah, I feel for these people who just snap and lose it, and I really do. I feel for them. Yeah, I just feel for those people who just let people get to them and they just snap and they lose it. Okay, I remember I was listening to two French radio stations from two different countries, two different francophone countries. One in France and the other in Quebec in Canada on TuneIn Radio. I turned the volume up. Had I had I had my Apple iPod Touch plugged into the auxiliary input jack of my home stereo, which is a 3-in-1 unit that has a turntable, a CD player slash CD recorder, and a cassette player and an AM FM radio. I played TuneIn Radio on my Apple iPod Touch through that to listen to two French radio stations from two different countries. And my dad heard it and he did this hand gesture telling my sister that I'm crazy. And I was just doing that just to learn French. I have a doctor who's from India told me if I want to learn a different language, just tune into a radio station that has that language and learn the language from that. Yeah, that's true. And that's what I've been doing. So, am I viewed as crazy by doing something like that? No, I guess to Americans like my dad, I guess I am crazy. There's something wrong with me. I got problems. I need to see a bunch of mental health professions and a psychiatrist. But there's one thing I failed to mention about Americans. Yeah, Americans are very narcissistic. You know, picky, toxic. Uneducated, undereducated, violent, too violent, weird. I think I said weird. So yeah, they're all those things. Yeah, I have my Apple iPod Touch plugged into the auxiliary input jack of my home stereo through an auxiliary cord, and it plugged, one end plugged into the auxiliary input jack of the home stereo, and the other into the headphone jack of my Apple iPod Touch, and that's how I listen to TuneIn Radio and those two French stations on it, two French radio stations from two different francophone nations. Well, Canada's not just francophone, it's anglophone too, so they speak both English and French. And yeah, so just want to mention that. Yeah, so yeah, so I'm viewed as crazy by my dad for listening to a French radio station and on TuneIn Radio from France and also from Quebec and Canada and also from the French overseas collectivity of Saint Pierre and Miquelon off the coast of Canada's Newfoundland and Labrador province. Yeah, he viewed me as crazy from listening to these French speaking radio stations. So, overall, I don't care. To people like him, I'm crazy, but, I don't care. I guess I am nuts. I'm Looney Tunes, and again, I really don't give a damn what people think of me. I've been noticing foreigners from other countries on their view of mass shooters here in the U.S. You got some who don't care about the backstory or the story of a mass shooter and what they used to be and what made them the way they are. They don't. Some foreigners don't care about that. Then you got some who identify the problem here in America. They say it's too many guns. Too many guns. It's the guns. And loose, lax gun laws and the NRA. Which is true, they're not that far off from being right. But, I think foreigners from other countries, they need to know this. You know, if you live outside the US and you know very little about mass shootings here in the US, I'll break it down to you, okay? Um it's like this. Yeah. It's the guns. That's true. There's too many guns in this country. Americans own more guns, way more guns. I mean, they inherited guns from their grandparents. I mean, they own all these guns, way too many guns. They're just basically gun nuts. They're gun enthusiasts or gun nuts. Then, but also you got loose, lax gun laws because the gun laws here just make it easier for someone with a mental illness and someone with a criminal record to go out and buy a gun and go on a mass shooting, and hence a torn, destroyed soul who's been torn down by a toxic society full of toxic people here in the US will drive them to go out and get a gun and do what they want. Grab a AR style 15 assault rifle, a gun that's used in war by soldiers in the military. Yeah. Then you got a toxic society that will take a normal person and abuse and torture and tear down that person, with you know name calling, being picked on, verbal abuse, being belittled, mistreated, ignored, and left out of everyday discussions on things if they have a disability. They're quiet, shy, and awkward. You know, that will drive someone to go on a mass shooting. And going back to being shy and quiet. I remember back in the day, a long time ago, if a guy or a boy was shy and quiet, I mean, that girl will like him, not because of, if he's a bad boy and all that stuff. No, she likes him because, he's good looking, he's nice, and he's very shy, he's very quiet, and she goes and breaks him out of that and form a friendship with him, and that goes, and that develops into, a strong friendship, or then they get into a relationship, a boyfriend and a girlfriend relationship, and then after that, when they get older, they marry each other and they start a family in the end. And the guy who was quiet, who was shy and quiet, is very talkable, and he has a lot of confidence. Far cry from from how women and girls are in America today. You know, they like bad boys and assholes. They look at the quiet, shy guy as creepy, weird. He's awkward. They don't care for him. I mean, he's not a bad boy. He's not cool. Yeah, you know, women like that today are just disgusting. The overturning of Roe v. Wade. Here in the U.S. I feel for the millions upon millions upon millions of women who got their rights stripped away. But that doesn't give some of these women here in America a pass on how they are, how bad they are, how much they suck. But I ain't saying all American women are bad. There's some good ones out there. They're rare, they're hard to find, and they're taken. And they understand. And you got some who, like me and other people, small pockets of people here in the U.S. understand what makes mass shooters snap. Understand what makes them who they are, and we don't lump them all into one boat like David Hogg and other Americans like him do. So yeah, yeah, these mass shooters today, these people who become mass shooters who have mental issues, yeah, you can't save these people, but you can save some, but not all of them. They're far gone in their insanity. I mean, there's no help. I mean, and doping them up on pills from a psychiatrist isn't going to help them. All it's going to do just make them drowsy, sleepy, non-responsive, gain weight, make them sleep all the time, and these pills ain't going to help them. You know, my dad had forced me to see all these mental health professions and a psychiatrist, and this pills from the psychiatrist that my dad deemed will help me quote unquote cope with my problems. Because my dad said I'm going around, I'm acting strange, I feel miss out of place. Well, because I'm been cooped up in the house. I don't go out more because he keeps me in here because because I'm on social security disability. I try going for a walk. He disapproves of it, and I'm just relegated in a house. But I think going for a walk, that'll be good for my mental health. But my dad doesn't understand that. All he cares about, if I walk into another neighborhood, these white people will view me as a dangerous black guy who's trying to attack them and their children, and all this crap. So I live in a very racist part of America. Well, I'm living around closet racist. Yeah, yeah. So yeah. Okay, guys like Nicholas Cruz, George Sudini, and Elliot Rodger. These mass shooters. Elliot Rodger, it was the Isla Vista mass shooter in California. Nicholas Cruz was the mass shooter and at Parkland, Florida, at at Stoneman Douglas High School. And George Sudini was a guy that went into this fitness center and shot up the place over a woman, not having interest in him. I don't know. But I'm gonna say this, these three guys, you know, if they were raised right, in a less toxic society that builds them up instead of tearing them down, will they be better people? Of course. Or going down the Winston Wu route. If they discovered Winston Wu's Happier Abroad forum here online, or his YouTube channel here on YouTube, if they discovered all that, they were gone overseas and live better and find women who like them, like hence the Philippines, or in Eastern Europe, places like that. They'll go overseas and they'll be happy, and all those people that they shot up in mass shootings will be saved, and they all will be still alive today. Yeah, and Elliot Rodger, he'll be still alive today. He wouldn't be dead, and the people he shot up will still be alive. I mean, these guys will see America for how it is, and they'll probably make, Elliot Rogers will probably make a YouTube video on his YouTube channel bashing the U.S. and bashing U.S. culture, society, and the women and the food and everything. He'll rip this country apart. He would be making that sad, angry rebuttal video. He wouldn't. And he'll see his father as the piece of garbage that he is, Peter Roger. Yeah, so, yeah. So, the problem with the U.S. is, people in America who run around being fearful and paranoid and standoffish and antisocial and cliquish, mean-spirited, hold a grudge against someone, don't believe in forgiveness. Those people who run around acting like crazy chickens with their heads cut off, those people will never, ever understand what makes mass shooters do what they do. Ever. Okay, the crazy chickens with their heads cut off terminology is not violence. It's just a terminology. There's nothing violent about this, but probably YouTube will probably pull this video down. They probably will. So if they do, I might as well just replace it with another video. Just talk about this again without saying the terminology, running around with their acting like chickens with their heads cut off. So yeah, YouTube's a mess anyway, so I might as well just go to like Twitter. I probably can get away with saying something like this on Twitter. But it is what it is, so I might go to Twitter. I might go to TikTok. Yeah. So yeah, I probably have more freedom. I have to worry about a video being taken down when I say some things like this. Like they're running around like crazy chickens with their heads cut off. Okay, before I end this video, I'm gonna read something from NPR on Red River Radio, and it's titled "How Other Countries Have Responded to Mass Shootings." This was posted on June the 7th of this year, and it reads as follows. 2 weeks ago, a gunman attacked an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, killing 19 children and 2 teachers. Since then, there have been at least 33 more mass shootings according to the Gun Violence Archive. They define a mass shooting as an event in which 4 or more people are shot or killed. Mass shootings are far more common in the U.S. than in any other developed nation. That's not to say they haven't happened abroad. Nick North knows the heartbreak of a school shooting all too well. In 1996, a gunman entered a primary school in Dublin, Scotland, and killed 16 students, including his daughter, Sophia North. She was 5 years old. That's terrible. That's bad. North has dedicated much of his last 26 years to prevent another mass shooting. After the Dublin massacre, he helped fund the Gun Control Network, an organization dedicated to strengthening gun safety regulations in the UK. How have other developed nations faced mass shootings? What could the US learn from their responses? Peter North, Rebecca Peters, and Montreal Jordan join us for the conversation. Okay. Yeah. Think about it. Like, okay, will it be nice if the U.S. Responded responded to a mass shooting the way the UK did? If that happens, then the U.S. will have gun control today. But that's not going to happen because there's too many gun nuts. The NRA, corrupt politicians from both parties are in the pockets of the NRA, and a lot of them are selfish, old, and out of touch, and don't care about regular everyday people. So gun control is not going to happen. So yeah, because the United States has a weak president and a weak party in power, a weak party that has the White House and both houses of Congress. That party is extremely, extremely weak, and that party is the Democratic Party. Yeah. The Republicans, on the other hand, they just flat out don't give a shit, and the conservative leaning U.S. Supreme Court, they don't give a shit either, at all. So no rock hard strict gun control that's in countries like Canada, the UK, Australia isn't going to happen here in the US. And yeah, some people say that gun control from those countries ain't going to work in the US. I say bullshit. That will work. But also, I think Americans need to stop running around being clueless and delusional and wake up and pay attention and just see what these mass shooters become and what make them who they are. Don't look at their creepy rebuttal or them them being obsessed with something. No. Go back to when they were like children. Pay attention to what make them do what they do. Don't just look at their actions and say, "Oh, he's nuts. He's nuts." And that's why he's like that today. No. Pay close attention. But Americans who will never ever understand mass shootings, they will rarely ever want to do that. Because they're going to continue to run on cookie cutter arguments. They're going to continue to be paranoid, antisocial, cliquish, mean spirited, weird, crazy, delusional. They're going to rude, just be tight-lipped, argumentative. They're just going to continue to be like that. And someone said this: America is a nation of people who lack intellectualism. America is a nation of people who lack intellectualism. Americans lacking intellectualism is the problem. Just some Americans who are like that, not all of them. So, from here on out, we're going to continue to see more mass shootings happening all the time because, we got people in this country who have no clue. But you go to other countries like Canada and others, you got some people in that country who have no clue either. Some who speak about the gun violence and the mass shootings here in the US, I think they're both the same. They see the problem, but they don't see the entire problem like people like me do, like people like me see. I ain't saying that they're wrong, they're not that far from being right, They're a little ignorant but you know, they're not that far off from being right. You know, yeah. Also, I've learned that you know people who live in foreign countries they don't have that accent. You know, some talk. I ran into some people from foreign countries who talk like they were born in those countries, but they sound like Americans. I don't know if they're expats or they're just they're 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 naturally born citizens of the country that they're living in. I don't know, but yeah. So yeah, like that person said, going back to mass shootings. I mean, Americans, not all, will never understand what makes mass shooters snap, and Americans lack intellectualism. Okay, that's all I gotta say here. Cheers.